Park Fort, Saskatchewan.
While Canadians have been suffering for 8 years under this government, well-connected insiders have never had it so good. Dominic Barton confirmed yesterday that McKinsey's Canadian lead, Andrew Pickersgill, was coordinating support from McKinsey to the Prime Minister's Growth Council. In other words, his analysts were telling the government what they needed while they were selling McKinsey as a solution at the same time. If that's not a conflict of interest, I don't know what is. So will this government end the obvious conflict of interest and finally tell this House how much money was spent on McKinsey?
The Honourable Minister of Tourism.
The minister responsible has already answered that question, but let us set the record straight in terms of who is actually standing on the side of Canadians. That is our government. What has the Conservatives done? They voted not once, not twice, but 3 times against tax cuts for Canadians. That side of the aisle voted against eliminating interest on apprentice and student loans. They voted against a federal minimum wage, and they voted against expanding the Canada Workers' Benefit. Who stands on the side of Canadians? We do. Canadians know one thing, Mr. Speaker, when the chips are down, Canadians cannot count on Conservatives.
The Honourable Member for Sherwood Park Fort, Saskatchewan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We do know this government stands on the side of those Canadians who work for McKinsey, but on this side of the House, we speak for the vast majority of Canadians who are concerned about $100 million in contracts, and public service doesn't know what work was done. Now, Mr. Speaker, after 8 years, more Canadians than ever are suffering because of the opioid crisis, but the government continues to defend their friends. McKinsey's Managing Director Dominic Barton claimed to have no knowledge of the relationship with Purdue Pharma. Once again, did the Prime Minister or government ministers have any conversations with McKinsey staff about the opioid crisis? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister for the Honourable Minister for Families.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years, what Canadians absolutely know is that the Conservative plan when it comes to opioids is dangerous, it is reckless, and it will put people in harm's way. And what they do know as well is that when it comes to standing with Canadians, we have stood with them, whether it was when we came into office and put in important measures to lift people out of poverty, whether it was during the pandemic when we were there in their darkest hour, and now when it comes to inflation, we put forward targeted measures that are helping Canadians every day. They know that we stand with them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Charboul-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, every government has used private sector legal or technical advice from time to time. But here we have a Liberal government that has completely lost control of its own government over the last 8 years. The Prime Minister has abandoned his governance responsibilities to multinationals like McKinsey. Instead of wasting billions of dollars on these companies, the Prime Minister could have invested here at home in made-in-Canada solutions. Why did the Prime Minister throw the Canadian public service under